This month marks the 2-year anniversary of the Typewriter Minutes channel.
We would like to wish all you viewers a happy anniversary.
Wait, why are you wishing them a happy anniversary? Shouldn't they be wishing us a happy anniversary?
Because they're our viewers. Without them, we wouldn't have subscribers or likes.
Oh, right. This is Jonah from Typewriter Minutes, and today we are doing a review for Tower Citation 88.
So we picked this up at Goodwill online quite a while ago, and we finally got around to cleaning it up. It's Citation 88, like Jonah said. According to the typewriter database, these were made from 1961 to 1963. So can't narrow it down any more than that, so we're just going to call it a 1962. It's in really good shape. We'll show in a minute some paint touch-up that I did here along the front. There's a little bit of paint missing. The top and the sides were in fabulous shape, and then the back had a few paint scuffs which I matched and touched up, and now everything looks really good. This model, you could tell they were entering the space age because they started moving away from the curvy 5 Series Smith Coronas, and they went to this more angular design. It's kind of neat. It's got little sharp edges right here. You can see where that flares up. It has sharp angles up here, up on the hood, and just has a little bit different profile. It's got this line going across here. The one thing I like about these, as opposed to the Galaxies, is that it's all metal, the whole thing, and it's just rock solid. We did take this thing completely apart because it was kind of dirty and stinky when I opened it. I don't know if it was the old grease. It had a smell that I don't remember on any other machine, so gave it a full chemical clean. Everything turned out really nice. And another thing I like is that it still has the metal carriage release levers as opposed to the plastic ones on the Galaxies. Those, you see those broken or missing on a lot of Galaxies. But it's all metal. It doesn't have any sound insulation in it, either on the top or on the inside panels. So it's kind of loud and proud, as you'll see during the type test. But I really like the design. They're kind of overlooked, but it really has a neat profile when you just study the angles. And we'll take a look at what we did to match up some of the paint before we look at the features.
Our executive producer mixed up some bottles of tester's paints. You know, those little glass bottles at the hobby store, until he got just the right color. Before, after. Before, after. Amazing. Astounding. Boring.
Okay, before we go to the features, just a quick note about the body panels. Something that's different from this versus the Galaxy or the earlier 5 Series. I think they might have taken a cue from the brother typewriters that were coming on the market. This side panel is just a standalone piece. This front panel that goes from here to here is a standalone piece. It has a little joint that goes into this part of the outside panel. Same on this side. And then this panel here is a standalone piece. So when it comes apart, it just, rather than one piece, it's got multiple pieces. A little bit easier to get off, I found. And again, the ribbon cover and everything's metal, but no soundproofing. So it's just interesting how they started to change, I don't know, some of the way they built these things from solid units to individual pieces. But every single piece is really heavy metal, and I really like that. All right, so Jonah, start to tell us about some of the things on the keyboard.
It has a dedicated one, an exclamation mark.
Right there.
And it has a control panel that slides.
A touch control.
Touch control.
So you want to move it from light to heavy touch, which makes the keys a little easier or heavier to touch by sliding that red ball. Let's see how it works. There you go. So it just slides back and forth. On this particular machine, I don't feel a whole lot of difference with the touch control. On some I do. I might replace the spring in there to see if that makes a difference. But anyway, it's just kind of a neat little sliding touch regulator. Here's the manual ribbon reverse lever right here. It's got automatic ribbon reverse system, but if you want to do it manually, just flip that switch, toggle it up and down. Got the insides of the same basic machine from the 5 series and the Galaxy. So a lot of the mechanics on it you would recognize. Got the key set tabulator over here. They've gone to a single button for the key set tabulator instead of on the Galaxy there's 2 little buttons that pop out of the plastic panel. I like I don't know, I might prefer the all metal construction on this one. The tabulator was not working when we got it. It would, when you push tab, the carriage would slide over but not engage the tab stop, so I had to make an adjustment for that. Under the hood, oh, there's the touch control. It's got black stencil and red. And then under the hood, very familiar Smith Corona type basket. I have test spools in there right now, but it does have the original metal spools, which is kind of nice. I'll put a new ribbon on that when we're done with the review. The ribbons do require an eyelet to trigger the automatic ribbon reverse, because the eyelet comes out and triggers that fork or this fork. But it's what you'd expect from a Smith Corona machine. And I have the tabs set every 10 spaces currently, so you can see in this little window down there where you are when you hit the tab or when you're typing. That's kind of neat. It's not a wobbly lazy Susan right now. And then back to this side, this has a little back cover that, okay, I'm gonna pass the camera off to my trusty assistant Jonah. It's got back panel which goes open and shut like that, and it has a quick release platen. So if you move the carriage all the way to the right, pull out the variable line space knob, and then there's a little lever right here. See that little lever? So push that lever, up and out comes the platen. So that's one of my favorite features of a lot of the Smith Coronas that have the quick release platen. So much easier than some other machines. Put it back in, do the same thing. Just push, twist, boom, you're done. This here is the carriage centering lever. So when you're ready to put it in the case, just push that and it stops halfway. So it's centered when you put it in the case. It's got a cool looking case, we'll show you in a few minutes. Nice big paper bail. Kind of a cool, I like the design of these platen knobs. Got these little ridges in it. It's kind of the small details that you really appreciate when you look at a machine in person. And back here, oh, we got the push and slide margins like every other Smith Corona. Super easy, super reliable. If you'll zoom in here, Mr. Cameraman. If you zoom in up here, you'll see this lever here is the paper release lever. So if you put your paper in crooked, you can lift that up, scoot your paper, and then snap it back. It's got pop-up paper supports. A lot of the newer Galaxies, or like the Sterlings, don't have the paper support on the back, and these still do. So I like that. That way your paper doesn't flop over the back. And then the back side, you'll see, you can barely see it, but you can see where I touched up a little bit of the paint. Thought the paint matched out pretty well because you can barely see it. And it's got the cool Sears Tower logo here. Sears Tower, and just a really cool looking machine. Again, I love the solid metal carriage release levers. You don't have to worry about them breaking with the plastic. If you'll come up here, I'll pass the camera off here. Okay, up here, there's your line spacing, single, double, triple space. There's your left side paper guide. I usually keep it on about 0. And then there's your page gauge. We'll show you how that works in a few minutes when we do the type test. And then here's the, if you hear the clicks, pull out the variable line space, and then the clicks go bye-bye, and you can move wherever you need to on the paper. And then this little lever here also releases the clicks. But, one of them retains line spacing and one does not. I believe this one retains the line spacing. I always get this backwards. And I believe with the variable line space you'll lose it. But don't quote me on that. I always get them backwards. So that's it for features and the body. Okay, here's the case. It's kind of a goldish, I don't know what you call it, gold patchwork. It's kind of a neat looking style. I love showing the cases on our typewriter reviews because to me that's one of the unique things about each machine is the case. I like working on the cases and cleaning them up, and each one's just a little bit different. It's got a really wide metal band going all the way around the case. And then the bottom is different than on the later trimline black cases that have 4 metal feet. This one's got, I don't know, a landing pad with, so it just rests on these 2 metal bars or this metal plate. So a little bit different. It works fine. The inside is a little bit different on this. It's got the push and release latch. But unlike on the later trimline cases, the black ones, nothing locks the typewriter in the case when it's closed. The holiday cases, the older holiday cases, had a bracket on the bottom and it latched in, and once it's latched in, if you pull up on the machine, it pulls the case with it. And the same thing with the trimline case. When you put it in, it has a cleat on the front and it locks. When you close the case, it locks the machine in place. This one doesn't have that. It has a cleat back here, which goes into the back of the machine. And then this cleat goes on the front underneath, but nothing actually locks the machine in place. So it looks like what they did was they put these 2 little felt pads, one there and one here. I'm gonna replace those because these are about worn out. And I think these just rest on the body. And so when the case is closed, it's just the pressure of the top lid holding the machine down, as opposed to having something locking it in place from the underside. So just a little bit different. So anyway, that's the case. It's in good shape and kind of a unique gold color. All right, before we do the type test, we'll show you how the page gauge works. If you'll zoom in over here, Mr. Cameraman, you'll see there's some green numbers on the right and some red numbers on the left. And it says set and end. So if you're working on 8.5 by 11 paper, flip this little platen release knob and move the green so that the number 11 is right above where it says set, and then flip that back. Now, when you put the paper in, as you're getting close to the end, if you'll zoom back in, keep an eye on the red numbers. So the red numbers on the left show you that there's 2 inches of paper left. Zoom in. 1 inch of paper left, and then boom, you're done. So that's how the page gauge works.
Now for the type test.
Okay, we'll flip up rabbit ears. I recommend 2 pieces of paper. The platen is a little hard, so 2 pieces of paper will help protect the type slugs, make it a little bit quieter, and give it a little bit better impression on the paper. Ooh, got it straight on the first try. All right, we're gonna do a couple lines on black first. So there's the line lock, which shows we're at the margin. So if you push the margin release, and you can keep going, pardon me, keep going into the margin. And let's put it back on single space. Smith Coronas from the 50s and 60s are one of my favorites to type on. The spacing of the keys, the feeling of the keys, and the type action. I'd say it's a toss-up between these and the Little Brothers are one of my favorite typers. All right, we'll do a couple lines on red. By the way, I recommend that you have a rubber pad underneath. This thing just feels really powerful when you type and it wants to scoot, so a rubber pad helps quite a bit. Oop. Typo. One of the things I like about this machine is it's got a gigantic space bar. If you compare this to like the little teeny tiny space bar that you find on an Olivetti Lettera 32, this just works really well for me. On a Hermes 3000, I find when I'm typing that my thumb is always hitting the frame of the machine when I'm trying to hit the space bar. This nice big space bar just works really well for me. Like the feel of it. So I'm gonna pass off the camera. Oops. Zoom in on the typeface. And you can see if I can focus. Come on, focus. There we go. Nice clean imprint. The upper and lowercase letters did need some adjustment, and I'll show you. I'll pass the camera back off to my trusty helper. I'll do a quick alignment test. Capital H, small h, capital H, small h, shift lock H. I might tweak it just a little bit more. Oops. Everything pretty even Steven. Might move the lowercase h's down just a fraction, but it's so close I might just leave it. So overall, it's a really nice typing machine. It's loud, like I said. There's no sound material either under the ribbon cover or on the body, and it has a hollow platen. So the combination of those two things makes it a little bit of a loud typer, but it's loud and proud and oops. Yeah, a little loud, but I enjoy the noise.
We'll finish up this review with some pros and cons.
You can see we have a lot more pros than cons. The pros include the cool angular design. I like the, I don't know, I like it. I also like the round curvy ones from the 50s, but it just shows you how the design changes, kind of like cars over the ages, from the round, curvy Chevrolet Bel Airs to the more angular cars of the 60s. It's an excellent shape, cosmetically and mechanically. The dedicated one and exclamation mark key is always nice to have. It's got a solid all metal body and the metal carriage release levers. So that's metal. no plastic key covers like on the Galaxies. Everything's just solid metal all the way around. I like that. The wonderful typing action. One of my top 2 or 3 typing machines, the Smith Coronas from the 50s and 60s. The snazzy gold case is kind of nice. It's different than I think any other one that I've seen. Some other Smith Coronas that we have similar cases, but I've never seen a gold one like this. Key Set Tabulator is nice to have. I don't use tabs much, but if you do, it's nice to be able to set them from the front of the machine rather than having to go to the back to use the tab stops. The fun sliding red ball touch regulator on the machine that's all tan. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of pop of color right there. And it's got the nice big space bar, one of my favorite features. This works really well for my big thumb. The quick release platen, it's nice to have. A lot easier to get it out than on other machines. And then the grippy feet, forgot to show this earlier, but if I tip it up, the rubber blocks for the feet are still nice and soft and gushy and in excellent shape. And you can see the nice clean underside. And as far as cons, Jonah, do we know of any cons on this machine?
It's loud and proud.
And what else?
A color tan may be a little bland for some people.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a bright blue or red or pink machine, this is not for you. I don't know what you call this. It's like a tan putty color. It took me forever to match it with the paint. I kind of like the look of it, but it's not a bright red or blue or anything like that. So that could be a con, depending on whether you like the color or not. That's it for pros and cons.
Thanks for joining us in Typewriter Minutes. Be sure to share, link, like, and subscribe. Bye.